I'm very happy to be in Canada, and my presence here proves that Canada remains a country governed by laws, not by here today, gone tomorrow politicians and their whims. And that justice counts in Canada, and I'm very grateful to the Honourable Judge Mosley for demonstrating that.
What message do you have for the Conservative government?
Well, you know, it's a dangerous thing that Canada has become so isolated in the world that it has allowed itself to become basically an embassy for the most extreme Israeli political line. Mr. Netanyahu has almost no friends in the world, including in the White House, but he sure has friends here in Canada, and not many people can quite understand why. There seems no reason why Canada, which was so widely respected, even loved in the world, not so very long ago, should so over-identify itself by anybody's standards, even a conservative's standards, over-identify itself with really very extreme Israeli politicians.
What message do you, or what message will you deliver to people tomorrow then about your experience with what happened to you?
Well, first I will talk about what happened to me, not just because I want to get it off my chest, but I do. This has been an extremely searing, indeed surreal experience for me to be sitting for almost 25 years in the British Parliament whilst a Commonwealth G7 country is declaring you to be a security risk and a terrorist is searing. And it has affected my life in many ways, which I shall adumbrate at the meeting tomorrow. But much, much more importantly is what it means for you. And what it means for you, as the Honourable Judge said in his 60-page judicial caning of Jason Kenney, is that Canada's laws and anti-terrorism as a rubric is being used to suppress legitimate political debate here in the country. And that's important in itself if you believe in democratic values, but it's also important, arguably more important, in that you will reach flawed conclusions as a country if you don't hear all the legitimate points of view argued out in public, in proper debate. And that's exactly what's happened. Canada has reached a deeply flawed set of foreign policy positions, and partly because it has set out to criminalize views which are widely shared in the country and around the world and must be heard.
I guess this isn't going to shut you up then, is it?
No, I mean, the good thing is that as any bookseller could have told them for free, the book you try to ban always ends up on the bestseller list. And I expect that the audience for what I have to say tomorrow, and indeed through the conduit of the media, will be far, far larger than it ever would have been if Mr. Kenney hadn't undertaken this foolish thing. But he's cost the Canadian taxpayer a pretty penny, and I don't suppose pennies are that plentiful nowadays here or anywhere else. He's damaged Canada's reputation. As I said at the press conference the other day, I don't know if it's because he's a fool or a knave. I'm not sure which will be worse, but I am sure that Canada deserves better than that.
Are you going after them?
Yes, I will have a meeting with my legal team, Barbara Jackman. I'm seeking redress for the damages that has been done. So this is not the final round between me and Mr. Kenney. Well, I'll be talking to my legal team about just what avenues exist, but indeed one of them is behind me who may very well want to have a say on that. But one thing's for sure, I have been defamed in a way which it's scarcely possible to exaggerate. I mean, for a high-profile politician to be announced to the world as a terrorist and a security threat placed my life in danger. I'm not being melodramatic. There are crazy people in the world who, if I really were the person Jason Kenney painted me as, might have thought themselves fully justified in putting a bullet in me. And so my life has been quite severely affected in many ways. As I say, I shall run through them at the meeting tomorrow. And I'm seeking redress for that, one way or the other, whether through defamation or through some other form of redress. So although Mr. Kenney has already cost you all a pretty penny, it may very well turn out to be pretty more pennies too. Well, the officers were very courteous, but the interview ranged rather farther than a normal immigration interview would. They were interested in my political analysis of many international political situations, which was flattering but time-consuming. And I was aware that there were people outside waiting to hear me. But they were, I couldn't fault them at all for courtesy and manners and good old Canadian efficiency. So no complaints.
Mr. Galloway, are you aware of the work that Canadians have done to bring you back?
Not only am I aware of it, I'm filled with gratitude and admiration for the legal team, for the political team, for all those who have struggled for 18 months to get me back into the country. And it's a great tribute to them that they were not intimidated, they were not terrorized into believing that they were somehow on the side of a terrorist or a security threat. My broader feeling, though, is that this visit will be at least tacitly welcomed by far wider sectors of Canadian society than just people who support me. Because I think there is a feeling in Canada, I get the impression that there is a feeling in Canada, that there's something not quite right about continually banning and excluding people and thus attempting to push views which are against the views of the government here into the margins, to criminalize them, to marginalize them. I think most Canadians, whether they agree with my political views or not, just instinctively know that that is wrong and not a good thing, not a good place to be. So thank you to all the campaigners. Any more questions?
Galloway, what do you think about the Canadian media that was delayed in responding to certain documents that were found?
You know, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when I read on my Google alert all these headlines popping up from right-wing Canadian newspapers saying Galloway has lost in the court. I must be charitable, I suppose, and say they hadn't read the judgment. But if I've lost, how come I'm standing here? I'm standing here because I won. And I won. I won.
Welcome back.
I'm standing here because I won. And I won because Canada still is a country governed by laws, that has a judiciary that will not be bullied or cowed or terrorized into rubber stamping the decisions, the caprice, the whim of here today and gone tomorrow politicians. And I must tell you, you're very lucky to have that. Not many countries in the world have such a judiciary. We do, and you do. And that's maybe one of the things that makes us close. Any others? Sorry, I'm...
Yes, Kenney out! Galloway in! 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 Kenney out! Galloway in!
If there's time to do it, I'd love